This is Harry Judd for Boxing Social in partnership with Empire Fight Store. It was a busy Monday morning here in Bolton. I'm joined by Joe Gallagher. Is it normally that hard, Monday morning sessions, Joe, for the boys? And Tasha, our lad?
Yeah, it is. It's Monday. It's just another day back into work and back into the swing of things. Sometimes a little bit busy. Obviously, Butler does be in, Charlie Edwards and a couple of others. But no, it's busy. Like I say, 4 of them are all fighting in a week's time, so they're in, and Natasha's working away now ahead of a date, possibly April, March time. So yeah, the gym's busy.
You spoke off camera as well about Sean Yaxley, huge talent coming forward as well.
Yeah, no, Sean, took him a while to settle in, but he's settled in now and he's had a couple of fights. He had 8 rounds last time out, could have got the stoppage right at the end. He's out again now next week. I think that'll make him 13-0 or 14-0, something like that. But I do feel he's somebody this year, could be a bit of a breakout year for him. Not many people are aware of him. He's learning his craft, he's coming through. You've seen him spar, good 10 rounds today. And yeah, he's someone that could appear from nowhere this year, and people could be talking about him by the end of the year. But he's got to get this fight, and then we'll see if we can get him on one of the big platforms, whether it'll be a Frank Warren show or Boxer Sky show, and give him that. And with the success Wrexham Football Club has got going at the moment, and Sean's there, you see social media, he's there every weekend cheering away with them. So yeah, that'd be good if you could get a picture of Ryan Reynolds, something like that, wouldn't it? Or get Ryan to the gym, wouldn't it?
You mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago at the Liam Smith press conference that both Clark, Smith and Sean, you want to get to them, let's say 9-0 this year. Is that still the plan? Yeah,
well, like I say, Sean's 12-0 now. I'd like to get him a couple more fights and put him on the title mix. Then there's obviously Clark Smith, 3-0. I'd like to finish the year 8-9-0, and the same Callum Thompson, get him on a 10-11 fight. So yeah, that's there. Then 2024, they're ready to push and ready to kick on. But it's a building year for some of them. Others in the stable, they're at the top of the mountain at the moment, so they're in the big fight. So we've got a range of fighters there now that have got to have a good year, hopefully.
Yeah, apologies, it was Callum Thompson you meant, not Sean Yaxley. I saw you on Saturday night as well, speaking a little bit about that, the launch of the new boxing game Undisputed, which you are in. Yeah, just talk to me about what that event was like and what you saw of the game.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the boxing world needs a boxing game. I don't think there's been one for like 10, 11 years, as they were saying, and to get the people in the game that they have done with your Canelos and your Deontay Wilders, and to do like a Choro Gatti in it, and then the old schoolers in it like Muhammad Ali, Rocky Marciano, and for present prospects as well. There's a couple from our gym in it, Crawler, Quigg, Tasha, I think CJ, Charlie Edwards, and also for coaching as well. So when they asked me for doing the coaching, I was like, flipping hell, it's a bit mad that, isn't it? So yeah, but then my kids think it's all cool and great, and mithering me for codes and when's it out. So yeah, so that'll be weird, but it's a nice thing. But listen, it was a good turnout the other night. It was good to see some good people there. Brian Peters was there, see Johnny Nelson, and Lomachenko's manager. So it was good. Like I say, the game and the graphics and the amount of time the boys and Ash have put into the game. I think it can only be a success. Like you said, the people that they've got in the game, it is brilliant to get Canelo in it, and Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. They've got the marquee names in the game, and the Katie Taylor as well. Do you understand? So yeah, it's got to be a great game, and it cannot be nothing but a success when it's launched.
So you obviously went down. Do you have to go down to Sheffield Steel City Interactive to go and have the stuff done? I didn't catch a glimpse of what you look like in the game. How likely is it spot on? Do you like how it's come out, Joe?
I'm not bothered, to be fair, really, mate. I'm not bothered. Listen.
Yeah, but is it impressive in terms of you obviously in terms of how you look on the game? Is it spot on? Does it look similar to you?
Yeah, I'm not sat there studying myself. Like I'm looking at all the fighters. I think the Canelo and the Gattis and the work that they've done and gone into it. Roy Jones, another one that's in it. The realism to it, and the cut lips and the swelling and the attention to detail. They've really tried to make this as realistic as they can do, and I think it's got to be brilliant.
Saturday was not only a night for the Undisputed launch, but also Yarde-Beterbiev. the sport has its downfalls, but it also has its huge, huge nights. What a fight that was, Joe.
No, it was a great fight, and I think I spoke to you Beefy Week v Eubank. I think boxing this year, 2023, has to pull its socks up. We started well last year with Khan Brook and I think Liam Williams Eubank, and there's some good fights early on, but took our foot off the pedal. This year, boxing 2023 really has to pull its socks up and have the best fight the best. And we seen at the weekend Yarde-Beterbiev fight Anthony Yarde, and it was a great fight. The week before, obviously, we've seen Eubank, Liam Smith with no world titles on the line, but there's good fights to be made out there. I said afterwards on social media, but yeah, I thought I'd learned my mistake. But I, as a boxing fan, want to see the best for the best. I want to see Spence fight Crawford. Do you know what I mean? I want to see Tyson versus Usyk. And I want to see Bivol versus Beterbiev. It's a fight that both boys have been champions for the last 3-4 years, and it's great. I understand people have mandatories, and people are quick to point out that Callum Smith was mandatory, and oh, you won't be saying that if it was. And I'd be thinking, no, I would. I'd think to myself, well, that was a hard fight for Yarde-Beterbiev. He's not getting no younger, and let him and Bivol have a dust up. Give everyone the world what they want to see, and then you just step in then after that and fight the winner of it, whoever that may be. But it's more miles on the clock for them. But that's what we want this year. We want to see the best fight in the best. Spence Crawford is too far gone. That should really happen by now. Garcia versus the Tank, Lomachenko, Haney, if that gets done. And when we have good solid fights, it's great for the sport. And I've always said boxing, when the best fight the best and the promoters all work together, we get great fights, and we need to carry on this momentum now for the rest of the year.
What did you make of the stoppage? You know, Tude Ajayi gets a lot of stick within the media, but I think it was probably the right decision to take Yarde out. What did you make of the stoppage from Tude?
Yeah, no, listen, he was looking after his fighter. They've got a very close relationship, and he acquitted himself very well. He done really well. He was up on the judges' scorecards on 2 of them, and he most probably knew Anthony was feeling the pace, was going to get marked up, got caught at the end of the round, and then he got dropped. And he's most probably thinking, Beterbiev, as you know, is a great finisher, he's a murderous puncher, and do you know what? We've done well today. Let's save ourselves to go again. The moment the light heavyweight division belongs to Yarde-Beterbiev. The only one that can dispute that is Bivol. We'll get them to fight each other. But Anthony Yarde, time is nearly here, and I think I've read somewhere that Beterbiev has said something similar. So, like I said, there's some great fights to be made for Anthony Yarde. In the meantime, there's a great fight for him versus Josh Schwarzer. That's a huge fight. I mentioned Callum Smith before. The light heavyweight division in this country is very strong.
What did you make of the antics before, though? The Tommy Fury, Jake Paul antics before? A lot of people were just, you know, WWE's come to boxing, that sort of thing. What did you make of it?
Yeah, listen, I know there's an event. It's mad because you watched Beterbiev and Yarde and that type of fight free on BT, but then they're bringing Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. And that's a pay-per-view event. It just doesn't make sense, does it? But listen, it is what it is. It's in Saudis. They've put the money up, and it is what it is. But they could have done it a little bit earlier on the card. But like I said, they want to gain traction and get people talking. Yeah, but we've got to be careful that doesn't creep in too much.
Are you interested in that fight at all?
No. The kids will most probably be watching it, and that's what I mean, that generation are into Jake Paul, Logan Paul, that type of thing. And the curiosity is like, well, as Tyson says, if Tommy loses, he'd best stay in Saudi. So I think there's an intrigue and everything, but just for a bit of light-heartedness, you tune in to watch it, but you can't take anything of it serious. But you've got to say this, Jake Paul has, when you look back on his training stuff from where he very first started to where he is now, he has come on and he has improved, and he does take himself quite serious when he's in training camp.
News came out, I think it was Thursday last week. You put a post up on LinkedIn. Congratulations, first of all, Joe. British Boxing Hall of Fame. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's weird, really. Isn't it? I got a couple of missed phone calls off a number that I didn't recognise, and then there was a voicemail, and I heard it, and it was Dave Harris. So I phoned Dave. I went, "Hi, Dave. How are you, mate? What's up?" He says, "Hi, Dave. Oh, glad you phoned, and just want to say, congratulations." So I said, like thinking on the phone, yeah, what? He says, yeah, you're going to be inducted into the British Boxing Hall of Fame this year. So I was like, what? He said, so I'm like, right, okay. No, I think I told him to fuck off first. And then he said, no, yeah, that's it. I said, I think there's Robin Reid, Henry Wharton and Maurice Hope. So I'm like, wow, thank you. So, yeah, listen, it's... just put a little post out there to thank everyone who's supported me on the journey from start to where we are now. So, yeah, I think that the event is in August, September time. So it's nice to be recognised by your fellow peers.
I've got this written down. So last year, unified world champion, a British and Commonwealth champion, an undisputed world title fight. That was last year. You're going to correct me if there's anything else to come onto that. Obviously, yeah, your prospects that are coming through as well. How did you top last year?
Last year I had New Year's resolutions, but they weren't as in like lose weight or do this. It was like to make Callum Johnson, Tasha and Paul Butler world champions again. And it was unfortunate this time last year we would have been fighting Joe Smith with Callum Johnson, but he caught COVID. So that let us down and the year didn't plan out for him. But for Paul Butler and Tasha Jonas it did. This year there's a couple of fighters in the gymnasium. I think they can really crack on, do things and win stuff this year. So we'll just see this time next year that they come true.
You became an amateur coach in 1993, professional coach in 2001. Yeah. You're going to catch me up if I get anything wrong here. How much has sport changed since those days? Good or for worse?
I think it's changed an awful lot. Obviously, from the amateurs, you had normal boxing, then they went to computer scoring, and then back to normal boxing again now. And the rounds have gone from 3 rounds to 5 rounds and back down again. And professional boxing's changed in the way that is. You look back on all the old fights, everyone used to be sat ringside wearing suits down at Wembley Arena, whether it was a Mickey Duff show or that. So it's yeah, it has changed, and social media's changed, and we have the influencers now and YouTubers, but yeah, it's changed. I think the basics in boxing itself, the training, everything else, I think you can't beat the basic fundamentals. That they'll always stay there. Like I say to the fighters, you're a phone. Your job as a phone is to make a call and receive a call. You're a fighter, and you've got to do basic work, road work, heavy bags, shadow boxing, skipping, sparring. Other stuff that you do on that is like bolt-ons, but no one can reinvent the wheel. And if you look at what the fighters with all the technology now and the sports science we have now, yet some still struggle to do 12 rounds boxing. Yet you look back way back then for not the sports science they had and the latest technology, they were doing 15 rounds and 15 rounds well. When you look at old fighters, Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, Sugar Ray Robinson, Leonard Hagler, all of them, do you understand? And they did Duran 15 rounds well. So there's something to be said, like you can't reinvent the wheel, but don't stray away too far away of the basic fundamentals in boxing.
Is it easier or harder to get to the top these days, do you think?
Well, I think there's lots of ways. I say you could get to the top. Obviously, there's more world title belts now. People say there's more television platforms, promoters out there that'll showcase you. But then at the same time, you've got to be in bed with certain promoters. You've got to sell tickets, and they get pushed. A lot of people see fighters that'll get pushed and fighting for world titles, yet you've got really good domestic British champions that aren't getting a sniff at a European or at a world because they don't have that relationship with the TV platform or the Sky, and they're ignored. So, and certain promoters, well, all promoters have working relationships with various governing bodies. So, yeah, there is, but I think you've got to be the right kid as well, at the right place, at the right time. I think there's a lot of good, hard-working fighters out there, some of them that really should be getting to the top or could be at the top, but just aren't getting them breaks. But they've just got to keep going and persevering, and eventually cream rises to the top. That eventually, when the phone does go, like old school, you take that opportunity, take it. I think an example of that was Nick Ball. Last year, he got an opportunity on the Tyson Fury undercard and grabbed it with both hands and hasn't looked back since. And that's what I say to my fighters: that phone goes, you're only got to be invited to sit at the table and eat once. You best make sure you're ready to go and out there and take your opportunity with both hands. Yeah,
I spoke to Jose Burton just before he left a moment ago, and he said exactly the same. One thing you have mentioned in numerous interviews is that the big fighters don't fight often enough. You look at Joshua, for example, and not just pointing out Joshua how many times he's fought in the past 3 years, but in 5 years, sorry. But looking at back years ago, you used to have like 3 or 4 world title fights. Now you're lucky to get 2.
Yeah, something that's creeped into the sport, and you can't expect somebody to be sat on a shelf for 30 weeks of a year and then get ready for a huge, massive fight and expect them to be able to maintain them standards. I think very much like a footballer when they're hot, whether you're Haaland or now Rashford for United, when you're hot, you're hot. Like a fighter, when he's in a good run of form, you keep that run of form going because they're a hot fighter. And they say years ago, when you look back at fighters, domestic Barry McGuigan, you only go look at his resume, how many fights he was fighting at the time as British and European, as he was working towards that world title. He was fighting 5-6 times a year. I think Ricky Hatton was fighting 4 times a year. And now all of a sudden it's this once a year, and I think our pin-up fighters need to be fighting more because they have once a year and then they get forgotten about. But if they're out regular and often, I think De La Hoya had 5 title fights in 1 year as well, and that's a Shane Mosley and a Trinidad and all that type of stuff. And Hagler, Leonard, Durand, I do feel the big fighters need to be fighting regular and often, and I think that's what's half killing the sport. And people are getting a bit disappointed because they're not seeing, as you see, example, Anthony Joshua fighting so often, yet they get to a event and they can't wait for the next one, but then it takes a year before the next one's available. And they're all saying, yeah, but the build-up and everything else, yeah, but there was a build-up with Muhammad Ali, there's a build-up with Mike Tyson, but they still got in and fought because people are, oh, when can I see him again? So they'd have the 2 weeks holiday, they'd be back in the gym and they'd go out and the fight again, and you've only got a small window to earn an amount of money and also to fight. And boxing, really, I think you speak to most of the champions on the way through, it was never about the money, it's always about the pride and the glory, and winning them belts and winning the fights, and then the titles and the money will follow. And I think a little bit now has changed more. It's all more so about the money, but it's not being filtered down the scale for the rest of the domestic fighters. That some domestic fighters are fighting for British titles for money, which was 1990s money. That yet there's inflation and everything gone up, and I feel it needs to be risen and not so much off the top. And yeah, I think TV has to take a bit of a stronger stand.
Yeah, I mean, you took my next question in terms of the money being filtered down, but you said boxing, I think it was boxing has slept on YouTube, was the quote that you said. I think it was in Macklin's Take. Just explain that a little bit to me.
I think because of boxing, we've always understood that you watch live sport, and we've been brought up watching television, whether it be Coronation Street or whatever does beyond Brookside and everything else. So, and that's how it is, where a generation of YouTube came through, and listen, I suppose I slept on it as well, in the way of marketing and pushing, and then all of a sudden kids weren't watching, they were watching KSI smashing up his bedroom because he was playing FIFA, and these are the new people that were like, who are these? But this is this next generation, and them 14 to 21-year-olds don't watch TV no more. They only watch live sport. The TV they watch is whatever's on YouTube. So I think we all slept a little bit on YouTube and how to promote and get fighters' profile built on there. But it's something that we've got to address and move with the times and get a grip of it very quickly, and by bringing boxing to the forefront, like Eubank and Liam Smith, it was on the back pages of all the papers after that fight that weekend and before it, and then you look at main papers, your Independents, Telegraphs, Guardians. There's another thing, the youth today, or that generation, don't read the paper no more. They did years ago, so we've got to find different ways of tapping in and really getting this next generation involved in boxing.
It's difficult, isn't it? You've got kids yourselves. You see it firsthand in terms of the content they watch. I mean, I'd be surprised at how many kids watched Happy Valley last night, like the rest of us.
I'll give you a point. I walked in the gym today and I said to everybody in the gym today, do you watch Happy Valley? Sean goes, no. Clark goes, what's that? Someone says, no, I've been meaning to watch it, I've heard it's good. And I'm like, how are you not watching Happy Valley? But they don't say it because it's not most probably on YouTube or not on an app or Netflix or whatever, but it's just, yeah, it's just mad.
It's on BBC iPlayer for those that want to watch it back. It is fantastic. I could go on all day about that. But back to you as well. Not only coaching in terms of the professionals, etc. Talk to me a little bit about Joe Gallagher's academy and the work that does.
Yeah, no, the academy is doing very well now. I think it's 5th, 6th year, doing very well. The numbers are very good. The students last year all passed the maths and English. Some of them have gone on now to be a part of a GB or England, which we're very proud about. The kids travel all over from Stoke, well, students from Stoke at the moment, Liverpool, Leeds, Carlisle. We have people relocate from Leeds and Lincolnshire over the period of time. So I'm very proud. Tony Chandler and Elliot Dillon, they do great with the students there, with their education, with VL UK and at the Manchester Youth Zone. And we've got like nearly 35, 40 students. We get our recruitment bang on every year. And it's something that I'm very proud of. Some have gone on to university, some are studying mental health, some have gone into sport and psychology, some have got coaching. A lot of them have turned into professional fighters. I think Jack Murphy he turned professional. So fighters that have gone through that academy, like Michael Gomez Jr., Marcel Braithwaite, Conor Tudsbury's on Team GB now, Bradley Ray. So it's been a good. It's been a good academy to bring the next generation of kids through, work-wise and boxing-wise and other areas of work as well. So I'm very proud of it.
You mentioned proud there as well. Obviously, linking back to this British Hall of Fame award as well. I know it'd probably be hard with the picture behind us in terms of the champions that you've worked with and obviously working with and striving towards now. But what is your proudest achievement so far?
Yeah, finger the amateur banner. I've got an amateur banner of all the amateur champions that we've had going up. Most proudest achievement. It's very hard to single one out because each one has had their own different story. So it'd be very unfair to say this one's win was better than that one's win. Macklin was written off, came to me. Next thing he won British European and he should have been crowned with Felix Sturm. Liam Smith had come off a draw. He went on to become a world champion. Anthony Crolla. People said he couldn't punch. Then he had the incident with the burglar, became a world champion, banged out the arena. Natasha Jonas was kicked to the curb, Paul Butlers. So everyone's got their own story. Jose Burton, I've had since the age of 11, become British champion. I mean, that's a huge thing. ABA champion, boxed for England against America. Joe Murray went to the Olympics. John Murray came through, got to 33-0, fought Brandon Rees at Madison Square Garden. So there's lots and lots. But as far as proud, I'm just... It's very hard to say what's the most proudest achievement. I am very proud of the academy. It's something that I've always wanted to give back. And I say the work with the kids, with the academy and getting that up and running, I think that'd be it more than anything.
Do you still feel pressure in terms of the big events?
Yeah, 100%. I was doing comms last week with Steve Bunce for Beefy Newbank, and as I was making the ring walk, I showed him my hand there, where it's like that. The nurse was going for Liam. So, yeah, of course you feel pressure. You feel pressure, the expectancy of you to deliver in the corner, the expectancy of your fighter to win a fight, to look good, for the fighter to look good in front of the promoter and the TV, and especially when it's kids that are getting a shot. And it might be the only first time on TV that they've got to impress and make Adam Smith, Frank Warren, whoever walk away, Ben Shalom, Eddie Hearn walk away going, nah, he's not a bad kid in, we'll have him on again. So that pressure does be on. The pressure of the fighters that are on ticket deals, hoping that they sell enough tickets to pay for their opponent, to pay the promoter, and that they have enough money to come away with a little bit of a wage and that they're not walking away with just £100 or £200. That's a huge pressure for the fighters and the families. So, yeah, you feel pressure from all sorts all the time. It is a very pressurised sport, one you have to deliver. We're in a results-based business, but what goes on behind the scene is pressure, making the right fight at the right time, fighters making the weight, and living the life. We only can control what they do in the ring. You might have heard me say to a couple and say, listen, you're grown men, it's up to you. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, but it's down to you at the end of the day. If you want to put your hands in the fridge and dip some of the kids' food or whatever, and your weight, it's up to you, but it's a pressurised sport, but you've got to use that against you. And I feel pressure, very like Customata says, it's like a flame. You've got to learn how to control it. And that's what you've got to do with pressure. You've got to thrive on pressure. And I always say there's two things you can do in Broadway. You can either shine or choke. and you've got to make sure you shine. But pressure's good as long as you know how to handle it and it doesn't overcome you. You've got to learn how to handle pressure and how use it as a feel-good factor and a good tool to your benefit.
I've always been fascinated in terms of what happens in the corner. I mean, you get a certain amount of time to sit down and talk through. The adrenaline must be pumping. What goes through your mind in those seconds you get?
I don't really sit and think about what I'm got to say. It's just what comes out, what's natural. I don't think, right, there may be instances in the round where they've done a mistake where I think you're going to get punished if we don't correct this down the line because they've seen it. So I'll most probably tell them that. But it's just really, sometimes it's little because all the work's been done in the gym and everything's going well, or sometimes they're straying from the game plan, so you have to reset, refocus, reboot and go out, new round and crack on again. And sometimes you do have to have a tone in your voice to kick ass with, do you understand? You don't really have to be shouting about it. There needs to be enough tone in the voice that they know, listen, come on, do it. So it's, don't really overthink what I'm going to say in the corner. It's what I feel it has to be said and that'll just come out.
Obviously fighters have got inspirations, I've got inspirations, but in terms of you and your boxing and coaching career, who is your inspiration?
Inspiration. I think coming up in the area that I came from, Benchill, Wythenshawe and Jimmy Egan at the time. I was boxing, I was Jimmy Egan, obviously it's famously known. That's what Tyson used to box for as well, Tyson Fury, but I was Jimmy's very first winner. He stood by me an awful lot when I was coming through as an amateur boxer. And then when I went off to become a coach in other areas, amateur, then over at Moss Side, Phil Martin, Champs Camp, and seeing where he brought Champs Camp out of the riots, Moss Side riots, and developing a fantastic gym with having 4 British champions with no TV deal. So them type of people who give back to the community helped inspire a generation of talent that continues to grow today in Wythenshawe. And Phil Martin and Moss Side, they both had an effect in professional boxing, and I think them two more than anything, they showed me the way forward. And I wouldn't say I had anyone, they inspired me and I'd say motivated me, but you still have to have that in you yourself. And I think I always wanted to, as an amateur, pit my wits as an amateur coach against Unity Boxing in Sheffield, Repton in London. They were the clubs that I wanted to pit my wits against, and then when I turned professional, I thought, right, I want to pit my wits against Brendan Ingold, Billy Graham, Calzaghe, Enzo Calzaghe, Jimmy Tibbs. I always wanted to cut my teeth against them best, so, and that's still very much the case this day and age. You can't let the grass grow under your feet, and you've got to keep challenging yourself as a coach and learning as a coach to keep moving forward. And you just can't sit there and think that you know it all, because that isn't the case. So I've always had a good work ethic and an inner finger to show people, like everyone says that I couldn't do it. Well, fuck yous, I'll show you that we can, and that's always been the drive.
Yeah, I did a community video for Jimmy Egan's not too long ago, through Sean Egan, and it's still a thriving gym, I'll be honest, it's still packed up. This is an odd question, but it's one I've always wanted to know, really. 3 dinner guests, dead or alive, who would you choose within boxing? And why? Within
boxing?
Yes.
Fucking hell, Muhammad Ali.
And why? Obvious reasons, perhaps?
Yeah, he's just the greatest. I remember Mum taking me to see him the Stretford Arndale years ago when he came to Manchester. I don't remember much of it. I think it was 2 at the time or something like that, 2 or 3. So, but Muhammad Ali, I met him in Cheerleaders in Manchester and then at Hatton's Gym. But yeah, Muhammad Ali, he's the greatest, obviously him. I'd most probably then, Sugar Ray Robinson would be the next one to have the greatest there as well. What a mindful experience that way, dinner conversation. And the third one, Robinson, Ali. He's not with us now, but Marvin Hagler most probably would. Yeah, dead alive. Most probably Marvin Hagler would have been the other one. Hagler, anti-establishment, did it the hard way, came through. So yeah, they'd most probably 3. I've met Joe Fraser and I've been in his company a while, but for dinner I'd most probably, Jack Johnson's one. I've read his book and I'm a huge admirer of Jack Johnson. So if I could squeeze 4 in, Jack Johnson would be the other one.
I hope you're not sharing any food. There'll be no food left for all the heavyweights on that table.
On the table, yeah. Marvin will be starving, wouldn't he?
Yeah, moving on as well. We mentioned how the sport has changed since you were involved, both amateur and professional, something that's grown. She's there behind you on that poster as well, Tasha Jonas.
It's big, and like I say, Madison Square Garden, Katie Taylor, Savannah and Clarissa down in London, Tasha Jonas at Liverpool. So it is big, Michaela. There's lots of more names this time now. Brackhouse has come back, so Amanda Serrano. Just me sat here naming all them women's boxing. Do you understand? We can't forget Jane Couch and what she did back then as well to pave the way for what's here now. But yeah, but what we've got to do, it's all right having a tip box moment last year, the biggest women's sellings event, but where's the second one and where's the third one, where's the fourth one? I understand this, it was a big show, big event, a lot of viewing figures and a lot of money was spent, but we could also do, like you say, and Natasha always said, the talent's always been there. We just needed a window or an opportunity for the world to see it. And I think that's what's happened with women's boxing, especially women's football, especially with the Lionesses, the women's football game, Arsenal and City and United, as well as the England ladies football team. But I feel that's with the women's boxing. It's all right having Caroline on a show here or one of the Olympians here or whoever. It's like, I said it to I think it was on Macklin's podcast, why don't we do a Friday night show, female boxing, but do it at the leisure centres and pack it out so it's just an all-women's show until we build up to have the huge arena fights, just like men's boxing was a few years ago, where we'd be at Aldringham Leisure Centre or we'd be in Huddersfield on a matchroom show, or Robin Park Arena where John Murray fought a few times. So we can have them type of arena events and have it all ladies cards to build the next crop of females coming through with a headline event, and then to build into another supercard event. So hopefully we see another women's event this year, a huge event. Katie had one in Madison Square Garden. There's talk about Katie in Ireland. But and for Sky, who was it? Where's the second one? When is it? Is it going to be the Natasha Clarissa Shields one with whoever on the undercard? So that's what I'd like to see this year, another huge female event. And then obviously most probably another one next year and start building that. But let's have a few female cards to keep all eyes on the female sport to help it grow, because my academy, there's 6, 7 good girls on there, some national champions, some that have been picked to box for England, and it's just growing all the time. You go to amateur boxing shows, there's always females on it, but let's have female shows on a Friday night, a bit like the old Prospect show or the Next Generation show, something like that. I think that would be a good idea.
Moving on as well, you keep mentioning the Tasha Jonas, and I have to be cheeky and ask, is there any more developments on her and Clarissa Shields?
No, not at the moment. We spoke last week, over the weekend, with Eubank Smith, Ben and Sky. So that's it, Mark Taffet. So everyone's off doing what they're doing, and spoke to John Wish over the weekend, so we'll see now later on this week, but hopefully it's a good fight. I think the little bit of social stuff that's been done it with yourselves and other boxing outlets, there seems to be an appetite for that fight from both sides really. When you look at social media, whether from America or whether from the UK, I think there's an appetite for that fight, and Natasha has always wanted to test herself against the best. She fought Katie Taylor, and now she wants to fight Clarissa Shields. Natasha, she says, doesn't duck from anyone, so I think it's a fight. I think there's a story to the fight. Clarissa coming back down to 150 to challenge for her old belts, and the story of Natasha that's grown over the last 12 months. It's fascinating. Could she pull off, say Mission Impossible, pull off the result that would shock the world? And you never say never with Natasha, and Clarissa will be adamant that she wouldn't do. Clarissa's got a huge profile over there. I don't see how the fight wouldn't do well. Do you think the fight would do well?
Absolutely. The hottest female fighter out there, other than obviously Clarissa over in the States, in the UK, is Natasha. You'd say so, wouldn't you?
No, I'd say so, but
yeah, okay.
I'd get stick for biasm. I'm just looking for other people, because I don't understand why, like I said, with the right market and the right promotion, I think this fight could be as big as what Savannah and Natasha. Obviously, there was huge ill feeling. There was a history of a fight beforehand with that. But I think there's mutual respect. They both respect each other. They've both been to the Olympics, and they've both trailblazed through the sport in the associated countries, her in America and Natasha in Britain. So, Yeah, I think it'd be a good fight, but we'll wait and see.
Finally then, we've spoken about the fights that we want to happen this year, etc., other than your stable as well. Are you positive that we'll get those fights? Are you positive at all?
Hopefully.
You can say no, Joe, if you think...
No, I think we can. I think there is. I think there's beginning to be a good working relationship with some of the promoters in the UK. Recently, we've seen Boxer and Frank Warren do some fights. Obviously, we've seen that with Joyce and Thinger, and Boxer and Matchroom. So, yeah, hopefully. But it isn't just that. It's just the fighters all over the world, whether you're with Al Heyman or whether you're with Golden Boy or Top Rank. We just need the best to fight the best. And I think we all agree on that, that needs to happen. It's criminal. Spence Crawford are in the 30s and haven't fought each other, and this is going to be a Mayweather-Pacquiao type of fight that was just too long in the tooth. And when you look at when Hagler fought Leonard, I seen someone say the other day, they were early 30s when they fought each other, and they said they were over the hill then. We've just got to get and that's what will bring everyone back in. Fights like last weekend and Beefy Eubank, do you know what I mean? Where no one knew going into it. Everyone knew who the fighters were, everyone knew how good each fighter was, but no one knew who would win. And that's what you want, and that's what we need to carry on with.